Okay.
Thank you for calling.
sorry.
But yeah, it's just, and I only put her on hold just because she wasn't letting us get a word in.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is, when you asked something like, how can you convince us that this actually happened, that entails some kind of actual physical evidence. I mean, even if the prophecy that she said she was, or the vision that she said she was having, turned out to be absolutely 100% the way she says she imagined it, she's only telling us now, 40 years later, or 30 years later, that she had these visions, which which lo and behold happened to precisely match the things that turned out to happen, and we don't have any way of verifying that. Just like we don't have any way of verifying that the stuff in the Bible that supposedly predicted other stuff in the Bible, not only can we not prove that the prophecy came true, but we also can't prove that the prophecy actually happened when they said it did.
Yeah. Well, that is. That was kind of my point, is that these are unverifiable.
I was just trying to clarify your point,
unverifiable
so
personal anecdotes. Yes. Well, we're just professors of logic.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I guess so. Sorry to just kind of cut you off like that, Pat, but it was starting to kind of grind the show down. Speaking of the show, let's move on.
But you know, this is kind of instructional for the guy who was wondering how people come up with this religion stuff in the first place.
Yeah, our previous
It's
call.
like,
yeah.
You come up with weird things, and then you come up with weird explanations for it, and then you get enough people to believe you, and then sooner or later you've got a religion.
Or just some sort of elaborate belief system of some kind.
Okay, I think we need to prioritize Chuck just because he's in Austin.
Yes, why not?
Hello, Chuck.
Hello.
How you doing?
Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Yeah, what that lady was describing, Pat, I actually experienced the same thing. It was at Nickel Beer Night at West L.A.
Oh.
Well, that's
anyway,
cheating if you do it with
earlier
beer.
You had somebody talking about whenever these people start comparing religion to science, I can't help but point out, all I have to do is say, remember Galileo. And I mean, the Galileo, who is considered the father of modern science, proved that the Earth revolves around the sun. And the Catholic Church had been preaching that the Earth is the center of the universe. And whenever he proved them wrong, they locked him up for the remainder of his life.
And
so,
he got off easy.
You know, if religion is anything, it is the anti-science.
But also remember the convenience of hundreds of years passing and none of the people who actually locked up Galileo still being alive. And so people who are religious are now free to spin stories like, oh, well, actually, those were Catholics and they're nothing like us. And really, when you come down to it, they didn't, you know, they were atheists if you look at it in a certain way. Believe it or not, I've actually heard that stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
but
so,
I mean,
by the time that Galileo's scientific discoveries come to be common scientific knowledge, the church was able to just disavow any, you know, oh, those guys weren't true Christians.
Well, they also, the Vatican apologized, you know, within the last century. For their treatment of Galileo.
John Paul.
Yeah, John Paul, and he did. But what's interesting is when you look at their apology and read the wording of it, right? It doesn't. You don't get the impression that they're apologizing because, well, it's wrong to imprison a man for his views that are in conflict with the received dogma of the church.
Yeah.
You know, that was actually, you know, they weren't acknowledging that. You know, they weren't acknowledging the simple. They were just saying that this was, well, you know, not the way to have dealt with the situation, and they weren't acknowledging that Galileo was right and the church was wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so.
I mean, you know, if anything, they've sort of reinterpreted scriptures. I mean, religion evolves just like any other beliefs.
Well,
so
right.
that
the
now
Old Testament and the New Testament, you know, they had to rewrite the Bible.
There's that. But I mean, neither of those turned out to be right anyway. So they had to come up with sort of shoehorn biblical concepts into facts which were established by science that had no input from religion, and then religion comes along and gets to take credit for that, which is why now you have like Muslims saying, oh, if you read it right, the Quran actually predicts exactly what the speed of light was, and nonsense like that. Religions love to do this, to take credit for stuff that they used to oppose.
Oh, sure, yeah. It's like these creationists. You know, they take one sentence from the Bible, God created the universe and everything in it, and they try to come up with a science class out of that.
Yeah.
Well, it's
and
interesting.
Mark my words, in another 200 years, the church will be finding all kinds of verses that show how perfectly the Bible described evolution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what you're seeing now, I think, in the relationship between religion and science, you know, ever since we had that wonderful Enlightenment thing, and churches were no longer allowed to run all of Western civilization, as it were, we now have this interesting relationship between religion and science where the most ardent fundamentalist religious believers, on the one hand, deplore science and they resent science because it comes up with this annoying stuff like evolution. And depending on how hardcore they are, heliocentrism and what have you. But on the other hand, they recognize that in our modern day culture, science is the agent of intellectual prestige. If you actually want to prove something, you got to do it scientifically using the scientific method. And so now you get you get these creationists, you get these guys like Kent Hovind and Karl Baugh getting their fake mail-order degrees so they can call themselves doctor and spouting these pseudoscientific theories and again, it's putting on the pretense of it's cargo cult science now is essentially what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think, well, we'll put on lab coats and we'll put the word doctor in front of our names, and we'll write very laughable little papers and call them our doctoral dissertations. If you've ever read Kent Hovind's dissertation, and we'll set up little groups and we'll call it the Institute of this and the Institute of that, and to sound all scientific. And if we go through the motions of science, suddenly our superstitious beliefs will be scientifically valid and respectable, just like all that actual science that the eggheads at universities do with their darn grants and research and stuff. Doesn't quite work that way, and they don't really get it, but they know that they at least have to put on the show, even if the show is really lame.
Yeah, well, these creationists, they want to just wipe out 1,000 years of scientific study that's based on observation and documentation.
Well, be fair, evolution is only 150 years of observation.
Well,
and
Darwin's
documentation.
theory,
Well, actually, medicine would literally be 1,000 years ahead if it were not for the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church outlawed study of
anatomy,
corpses is what they'd outlawed. Study of corpses for about 1,000 years.
Yeah. Right. We would definitely be perhaps a lot farther along in a lot of things had it not been for the the church in many ways. It's difficult to say if it's going to be 1,000 years or a couple hundred or what have you. But yeah, I think that certainly in some things, definitely in medicine, we would be a lot farther ahead than we are. I mean, the Muslim world in like the 13th, 14th, 12th to 14th century was actually much farther ahead in medicine than the West was.
In the 800s, I think they were the world leader in mathematics and science, and then they just kind of went downhill from there.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's possible we may have had germ theory a couple hundred years before we actually did, and what have you, had it not been for religious meddling about, oh no, corpses, you can't. That's you can't do that. It's sacred stuff.
Anyway. Thanks for calling.
Great. Hey, listen, I'm always happy to bash religion.
Well,
okay.
Alrighty then.
Thanks for letting me.
You're welcome.
Thanks for the call. Thanks for watching.
We're always happy to bash religion also.
I was really feeding back on his call.
I know. Although we do also promote positive atheism.
We do.
Which means, and speaking of that,
rum.
Yes.
Grog. Yes, grog.
And coming to Threadgills after the show.
And
after the show at 6:30, we're going to be meeting at Threadgills on Riverside. And nice eye patch, Martin.
Why, thank you.
My
out-of-control pineal gland is no longer. Yes.
Yar.
Arr.
Anyway, Yes, and also I just want to say one more time that the Bat Cruise is next week. So if you've been putting off deciding whether you're going to come, you should totally come because there are people from like all over the world, and it's just a giant boat full of atheists, and bats poop on you. Well, not really, but
Well, they
sometimes
could. I
they
mean,
do.
that's because
But it's still cool.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm a terrible salesman.
Well, yeah. The pooping thing probably could have.
Okay, so let's see. I'm actually, I gotta go with Sam, also in Austin.
Okay. Well, how long is James? Oh,
Yeah,
well,
all
we'll
right,
go-
James has been on it for a while. Hang in there, Sam.
Yeah. That's,
James, St. Louis.
Yes, thank you.
How you doing?
Good conversation you guys were having last time. Do you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
just fine. Thanks.
Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the genetics of God. And to preface this, I'm an atheist. I have been all my life. But I just, the past couple of days, I've been entertaining the idea of Jesus Christ is only a hybrid God. So, little course in...
He gets better mileage than a typical guy. Yeah. I couldn't resist
sorry, what was that?
He gets better gas mileage because he's a hybrid.
Yeah, exactly. Some of them...
I got a million of them, folks.
True.
Okay.
Try the deal.
Sorry.
So we get half of our genes from our mother and our father, obviously, and when they combined, they form a zygote. And so, remove all the science talk out of it. Mary contributed half of her genes to Jesus, and God contributed half of his genes to Jesus. So, if you really want to use this with a little bit of scientific scrutiny, you can assert the idea that Jesus is actually half man and half God. But if you want to even extend it a little further and take mitochondrial DNA into the equation, Jesus is actually a little bit more percentage of man than God.
Okay.
And,
Well, the problem with religious
Didn't
belief
think of that,
is
did you,
that
Kent Hovind?
you can't really get too detailed with the science. I mean,
But
you
it's
listen.
fun.
You listen to a guy like Hank Hanegraaff, the Bible Answer Man, and I believe he'll say something like, Jesus is paradoxical in that he's 100% God and 100% man, and it's like, well,
Yeah, you get the special pleading
that's
stuff.
200%. That doesn't even make mathematical sense, let alone scientific sense.
Or maybe they'll just say that God's DNA was just so super awesome, right? That it just completely overwrote
Mary.
DNA Mary's. And but then again, perhaps you might just get some Christians telling you, well, duh, but that was the whole idea because God intended Jesus to be human so that he could be crucified and sacrificed and take on male sin. So, and if he was 100% God, they couldn't kill him. So you had to.
Worse yet, I mean, you'll get people who are claiming that the less scientific sense it makes, the more proof that is that it's true, because nobody would make up such nonsense.
sure.
So,
But I guess what you've got is just a really fun way to like confront a Christian at a party and make him go, "Dude, shut up, man, you suck."
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like it's just fun.
right.
But
If you have nothing better to do.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, but I was also trying to...
Yeah, it does sort of lead one to speculate what just God's DNA, right? I mean, right? It's just sort of what all is. How is that? The properties in it that just make it.
That's what happens when you apply like our common time scientific knowledge to the almost laughable things that happen in the Bible. Because if you think about it, I don't want to say for certain, but it was probably highly probable that way back then, when they had a rudimentary understanding of how biological things functioned, and to try to be as non-crude as I can be, these gentlemen way back when would be doing whatever they are doing, and stuff would come out of their,
Right.
and they see it and they say, oh, that's my seed. I plant my seed inside of a woman just like we plant grain seeds, and so it's like, obviously this is coming from me. The woman is just a vessel for my seed, and that's why I'm like so much better than her, and she's only there. I can propagate my sons and all that stuff, and it's only now.
Yeah, that patriarchal thing got
that's
going
different.
real early. So yeah, when they figured that part out.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Okay. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, appreciate it very much. Yeah.
See you later. Now we've got Sam in Austin. Thanks for waiting, Sam. Are you there?
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi. I wanted to say something about Pat